Part 1. The Echo. Elias Crow was born with something wrong inside him, or maybe something too right. From the time he could walk, he felt the echo. It wasn't voices exactly. It was fragments. The sharp sting of a mother's regret when she snapped at her child in the grocery store. The hollow ache of an old man's loneliness as he stared out a nursing home window. The bright flare of joy in a little girl's laugh. Touching someone made it worse. Skin to skin, and suddenly he was drowning in their hidden pain. His father, a mean drunk who worked the logging camps up near the Canadian border, hated anything he couldn't punch or drink away. One brutal winter night in their drafty trailer outside Olympia, Washington, the old man came home raging after losing his job. Elias, only 8, tried to stop the beating his mother was taking. He grabbed his father's wrist, intending only to pull him away. Instead, the echo surged like a riptide. He felt every ugly secret, the beatings his father had suffered as a boy, the shame that fueled the rage, the fear of being weak. The man gasped, clutched his chest, and dropped dead on the dirty linoleum. Heart attack, the coroner ruled. Elias knew the truth. He had yanked the darkness straight out of his father, and it had killed him. After that, the remnants started appearing, pale, translucent shades of the dead that clung to the living like smoke. They whispered accusations, fed on unresolved guilt, and grew stronger the longer they were ignored. Elias's mother, broken and terrified, sent him to live with an aunt in Tacoma. It didn't help. The shades followed. By 13, he was running away, hitchhiking south, learning that whiskey could muffle the echo, at least for a while. Decades passed in a blur of bottle after bottle, dead-end jobs, and mornings waking up in alleys with no memory of the night before. He worked construction in California, security in Nevada, dishwashing in Arizona. Every few years the echo would flare uncontrollably. A bar fight where he accidentally pulled too much pain from an opponent and left the man catatonic. The guilt always drove him back to the bottle. At 41, he hit rock bottom in a seedy Portland bar. After a blackout brawl that left him with a fractured skull and 3 warrants, he woke up strapped to a hospital bed in detox. That's where Harlan Voss found him, a weathered Vietnam vet turned addiction counselor with eyes that had seen too much. "You got ghosts riding you, son," Harlan said during their first real talk. "But ghosts only stay if you keep feeding them your fear." Harlan dragged him into the rooms. Smoke-filled church basements, fluorescent-lit community centers, circles of men and women sharing their lowest moments without judgment. Elias resisted at first. Then, one night, shaking with withdrawal, he spoke for the first time about the echo. Not the full truth, but enough. No one laughed. A few even nodded, as if they understood carrying invisible weights. He got sober the hard way. 90 meetings in 90 days. A sponsor named Marcus, a quiet trucker who had lost his family to his own drinking. Slowly, the shades retreated into the background. Elias found work as an orderly at Willow Glen Hospice, a peaceful facility tucked in the misty foothills east of Seattle. The patients there were mostly elderly, slipping away from cancer, heart failure, or simply old age. Elias discovered something new. He could help them let go. By gently placing his hand on a dying person's forehead and coaxing the heaviest fragments of pain outward. Not violently as he had with his father, but like drawing poison from a wound. He eased their final hours. The fear dissolved. Faces relaxed. Breathing slowed into peace. The staff noticed. An old gray cat named Whisper began appearing on beds right before a patient passed, purring softly. The nurses started calling Elias the Dr. Sleep. He smiled at the nickname, but it carried a quiet weight. For the first time since childhood, he had a routine, an apartment with actual furniture, and mornings where he didn't crave a drink before noon. He even began mentoring a quiet teenage volunteer named Jamal, teaching the boy that second chances weren't handed out. They were earned through daily choices. Life felt almost normal, until the girl reached him. Part 2, The Bright One. Her name was Mira Kane, and she was 14 years old the first time her mind touched his. It happened during a late shift. Elias was sitting with Mrs. Hargrove, a 92-year-old woman whose family had already said their goodbyes. As he eased her final pains, a sudden vivid burst slammed into his skull. A girl with curly dark hair and intense green eyes, standing on the rocky shore of a lake as thunderheads rolled in. She wasn't speaking aloud, but her thoughts rang clear. "They're hurting the bright ones. I saw them take a boy. Please, you're like me. Help." The connection was electric. Myra's echo was raw and powerful, like a wildfire compared to his own smoldering coals. She could project her consciousness across distances, slip into other minds, even nudge objects when emotions ran high. Lately, though, she had been sensing predators. A loose caravan of wanderers who traveled the back roads of the American West in battered RVs, panel vans, and old campers. They looked like ordinary retirees. Gray-haired couples selling dream catchers and handmade soaps at flea markets, laughing around campfires at state parks. They called themselves the Veil. To outsiders, they were harmless eccentrics chasing the open road. In reality, they were ancient, sustained by harvesting resonance. The psychic essence released when someone carrying the echo suffered extreme terror and pain. Children produced the sweetest, most potent resonance. Adults like Elias offered something deeper and more complex, aged by years of regret. The leader was a woman known only as Mother Vesper, elegant and silver-haired. She wore flowing scarves that seemed to shimmer with faint colors even in dim light. Her smile was warm and grandmotherly, but her eyes were flat and hungry. Her inner circle included a massive, slow-moving man called Rook who could cloud memories and make witnesses forget entire encounters, and a thin, silent woman named Lark who could plant waking nightmares with a single whispered suggestion. Mira had first encountered them when her best friend, a shy boy who sometimes shared dreams with her, disappeared during a family camping trip near the Idaho border. Police called it a runaway. Mira knew the truth. She had felt the boy's final, agonized burst of resonance like a scream cut short across the miles. Desperate and terrified, she began casting her mind outward, searching for anyone strong enough in the echo to hear her. After weeks of failed attempts, she found Elias. First, he tried to shut her out. He had fought too hard for his fragile peace. The shades in his apartment had grown quiet. He attended meetings regularly. He even had coffee with Marcus twice a week. But Myra's projections grew more urgent. She showed him flashes. A child bound in the back of an RV, whimpering as the Veil members circled with ritualistic patience. Mother Vesper inhaling glowing threads of light that rose from the suffering like steam from a kettle. Caravans moving silently through mountain passes, always heading toward the next bright signal. One stormy night, as Elias left his shift at Willow Glen, Whisper the cat arched her back and hissed at the parking lot edge. A sleek, dark RV with tinted windows sat idling under the streetlight. A woman in a colorful scarf waved cheerfully from the passenger seat. Her gaze lingered on him too long, probing. That night, the shades returned in force, whispering in his father's drunken voice. Elias knew running wouldn't work anymore. The girl was too bright, too loud. The Veil would find her eventually, and if they took her, her resonance would sustain them for decades. He reached back across the miles. "Okay," he sent. "Tell me everything." Part 3, The Gathering. Mira lived with her overworked single mother in a modest house outside Spokane. She kept her powers hidden, but the Veil had already marked her. Their scouts, lesser members who could sense strong echoes from afar, were closing in. Elias began building a small circle of trust. First was Marcus, his sponsor, who listened without judgment when Elias finally confessed the full truth about the echo and the girl. "If this is real," Marcus said, "then protecting a kid is part of staying sober. We don't let the past win." Next came Dr. Lena Soto, the hospice psychologist who had long suspected Elias's miracles weren't ordinary bedside manner. Skeptical but compassionate, she brought medical knowledge and a fierce protective streak. Finally, Billy Ruiz, a retired long-haul trucker and fellow AA member who owed Elias for countless late-night talks during his own relapses. Billy brought practical skills, weapons from his hunting days, and an unshakable calm. They met in secret, piecing together Myra's visions. The girl acted as their eyes, projecting herself carefully to scout the veil's movements without revealing her full location. She described their rituals, the way they prolonged suffering to extract richer resonance, how they turned some gifted adults by offering false immortality, how their numbers had dwindled over centuries, but their hunger never faded. Elias taught Mira techniques he had learned the hard way, how to build mental barriers, how to release pain instead of letting it consume her. In return, she reminded him what pure, unscarred echo felt like, hope instead of guilt. The tension built slowly. Elias's cravings returned stronger than ever. Some nights he sat in his truck with a hidden bottle under the seat, hands shaking, fighting the urge to drink until the whispers stopped. Marcus talked him down more than once. "One day at a time, document. The dead don't get to vote." Meanwhile, the veil grew bolder. They sent scouts to Willow Glen, posing as visitors to dying relatives. Rook tried to cloud Elias's mind during a night shift, making him forget where he had parked. Lark brushed past him in the grocery store and planted a nightmare of his father rising from the grave. Elias pushed back using his hospice-honed control, turning the echo outward in small, precise bursts that left the scouts disoriented and aging years in minutes. But the main force was coming. Myra's projections showed the full caravan, nearly 24 vehicles, snaking through the Cascades toward eastern Washington. Part 4. The confrontation at Blackthorn Mill. They chose the battlefield, an abandoned lumber mill deep in the National Forest, a place Mira had explored in her astral travels. Rusted saw blades, collapsed roofs, and overgrown machinery provided cover and ambush points. Elias and his small group arrived first under cover of a gray dawn. Marcus carried a shotgun. Billy had rifles and binoculars. Dr. Soto brought medical kits and insisted on treating any impossible injuries they might sustain. Mira stayed hidden miles away but projected strongly, guiding them. The Veil arrived at dusk, their vehicles rolling in with deceptive calm. Campfires were lit, laughter echoed, the same easy, folksy chatter they used at roadside stops. Mother Vesper stepped into the clearing, her scarf drifting though the air was still. "We felt you calling, Doctor," she said, her voice warm and melodic. "Such a bright little spark you found. Join us. We offer more than meetings and coffee. We offer eternity." The attack came in layers. Rook moved like a shadow, trying to erase their memories mid-fight. Lark wove nightmares. Marcus relived jungle ambushes from his war days. Billy saw his dead daughter calling from the trees. Dr. Soto faced visions of patients she had lost screaming in agony. Elias stepped forward, letting his echo flare fully for the first time since killing his father. He reached out and pulled, not gently, but with controlled fury. From Rook he tore stolen resonance, watching the big man shrivel and collapse into dust that scattered on the wind. The Veil members hissed and charged. Gunfire mixed with psychic assault. Billy dropped several lesser members with precise shots. Marcus fought hand to hand, resisting mental clouds through sheer stubborn will honed in the rooms. Dr. Soto dragged an injured ally to cover, treating wounds that bled light instead of blood. Mother Vesper focused on Elias. She unleashed the accumulated trauma of centuries, thousands of children's final screams, parents' helpless grief, lives stolen in backwoods clearings. The shades Elias had long suppressed roared back, joined by new ones. His father's face loomed, laughing. The bottle called louder than ever. For a terrifying moment he faltered. The old craving surged. One drink and the noise would stop. He saw every failure. The people he had hurt, the roads he had run, the boy he had been who only wanted to protect his mother. Myra's voice cut through the storm, clear and fierce. You're not him. You've built something real. Lock the pain away, then turn it back on them. Drawing on every AA step, every quiet hour at a dying bedside where he had helped souls release their burdens, Elias constructed a vault in his mind, not to hide the shades forever, but to contain the flood. He absorbed Vesper's assault, transformed the raw agony into fuel, and pushed. The veil staggered. Threads of stolen resonance began leaking from them, drawn irresistibly toward Elias like iron to a magnet. Vesper's serene mask shattered. She lunged physically, a long knife flashing in the firelight. Billy wounded her, but she kept coming, centuries of rage fueling her. In the final moments, amid the rusted skeletons of the mill, Elias faced her alone. She tried one last temptation. We are the same, Doctor, both feeders on pain. Join us and never be weak again. Elias shook his head. I'm not feeding anymore. I'm letting go. He placed his hand on her forehead, the same gentle gesture he used with hospice patients, and drew out the core of her immortality. The endless cycle of inflicted suffering that had sustained the veil for generations. Vesper screamed as time caught up with her in heartbeats. Her elegant form withered, skin cracking like old parchment, scarf falling away to reveal an ancient, hollow shell. She dissolved into dark mist that the night wind carried into the trees. With their leader gone, the remaining Veil members lost cohesion. Some fled into the forest. Others simply crumbled as their stolen years unraveled. The battle ended not in grand explosions, but in exhausted silence broken only by the drip of rain on rusted metal. Epilogue. One day at a time. Mira survived, her powers tempered by the ordeal but still bright. She would need guidance, and Elias promised to provide it, not as a flawless mentor, but as a man still fighting his demons one meeting at a time. They stayed in touch through careful, encrypted calls and occasional projected visits. Her mother, slowly brought into the truth, became part of the wider circle. Dr. Soto began quietly researching what she had witnessed, blending science with the impossible. Marcus and Billy returned to their lives, carrying new stories into the rooms, tales of courage that helped others stay sober. Elias went back to Willow Glen Hospice. Whisper greeted him at the door each evening, purring as if nothing had changed. Patients still slipped away peacefully under his care. The shades whispered less often now. When they did, he listened, acknowledged the old traumas, and gently released them, the same way he had learned to release his cravings. Some nights the open road still called, and the bottle whispered from memory. But he had his sponsor, his meetings, his small apartment with its model train set, a quiet hobby that reminded him of simpler joys, and a fierce young girl who sent him silly memes and updates from school. Second chances weren't clean or easy. They were messy, ongoing, and fought for daily. But they were real. And in the fog-shrouded hills of the Pacific Northwest, the doctor's sleep kept watch, helping the dying find peace, protecting the bright ones, and proving that even the deepest scars could heal if you refused to let the past define tomorrow.